Welcome to the ChargePoint podcast, brought to you by Flexecharge, your gateway to the future of EV charging. In each episode, we dive deep into the world of EV infrastructure, offering insights and perspectives from industry leaders, innovators, and the people at the forefront of deploying charging solutions and networks. Join us to explore the exciting developments that are accelerating our world towards sustainable mobility.
Welcome to episode 5 of the ChargePoint podcast. I'm Christoph from Flexecharge, and I'm thrilled to bring you an exclusive conversation with a leading figure within the energy industry. Today we're joined by Laurent Schmitt, Head of Utilities and European Developments at DCbel and Chair of SmartEN. With over 20 years of experience, Laurent's career has taken him from leading roles at Alstom and General Electric to serving as Secretary General of ENTSO-E, the European Association of Grid Operators in Brussels. In this dynamic 30-minute episode, we dive deep into the state of national grids across Europe and explore their readiness for the exponential growth of e-mobility. Laurent offers expert insight into challenges like dynamic pricing, grid congestion, and the role of incentive in fostering sustainable energy transitions. We also discuss virtual power plants and how this technology can revolutionize EV charging infrastructure. Finally, Laurent shares exciting developments at DCbel, where they're reimagining home energy management with their innovative DC charger. This device has the potential to change how EV drivers manage energy at home, combining convenience and efficiency like never before. We hope you enjoyed this insightful conversation as much as we did. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the ChargePoint podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to have a guest, Laurent, all the way from Paris. Laurent, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, Christoph. Thank you for inviting me today. I've been working 25 years in the power industry, starting from Alstom and General Electric, where I ended up being the head of strategy and innovation for their smart grid business, and then moved into ENTSO-E, the Association of Grid Operator at European level, where I was the Secretary General. ENTSO-E is a very important organization for producing grid codes, connection codes, market codes to integrate market participants into grids and markets. And for the last 4 years, I've been working with the French-Canadian startup DCbel, now grown up, focusing on bi-directional charging into home environments. Very happy to be here and contribute to this virtual power plant discussion.
Yes, great. That's definitely going to be one of our topics. So you are a member of the SmartEN group on European level. So can you tell us a bit more about this group? What's the purpose? What are the activities?
Yeah, so as part of my DCbel role, DCbel is one of the members of SmartEN. I'm also the chair of the digital committee of SmartEN. SmartEN is the reference association when it comes to distributed energy resource flexibility. And it's focusing on enabling market designs, market rules, favoring participation of distributed energy resource into grids and markets. 3 years ago, SmartEN did realize the importance of a digital platform, data exchange, API, digital interface. And we decided to form a new committee precisely working on such interface and trying to make the end-to-end value chain from the charging point consumer up to the flexibility service provider, virtual power plants, and grid operator, and have a seamless integration through a standardized API. So right now we are very active and focus on enabling new data space, is what we call, which are interoperable data environments favoring data interaction across the value chain.
And exciting. And what kind of members do you have? So I heard about something like 100
SmartEN members are typically OEMs, manufacturers of hardware equipments, or also software companies doing energy management software typically, as well as basically aggregator trading into markets and market operators. So it is a very unique ecosystem which really represents the end-to-end value chain of energy flexibility from equipments into homes up to control platform, IoT, enabling IoT platforms, up to virtual power plants and aggregators and traders. So this is really an interesting organization at the European level.
All right. Yeah. And so, to your knowledge, are there any EV charging professionals? So,
Yes.
yeah, what kind of members are
There
within
is
this?
a dedicated group working on EV charging and particularly bidirectional charging. And really the focus into enabling smart charging V1G and V2G, and looking at it through the perspective of the regulations on one side, especially when it comes to the new European flexibility codes, as well as basically the technology elements, and as what I was saying, what type of data interface and APIs to be set up and standards to be developed in view of this energy management value chain.
Okay. Yeah. So, and to your knowledge, are they concretely any charge point operators? So, professional. Yes.
They are, to name few, I think they are Tesla, they are Volkswagen, they are Volvo, more on the OEM side. When it comes to hardware, there are companies like ours, DCbel, Schneider, Siemens, and equipment vendors. And then there are a few CPO, like Enel is one of the big contributor there. But EV Energy, if I remember well, and it's constantly growing. And of course, you've got the lead aggregator onto the market. One of them being, for instance, Octopus Energy, and but also a few others. And really, what we are aiming for is building end-to-end ecosystem, interoperable, easy to work with, and precisely enabling regulations where grid operators, traders can take advantage of flexibility at the edge of the grid system into optimizing energy flows.
All right. So, would it be a call to action for other professionals to join? There's more chairs around the table, right? So,
That
yeah.
would be my suggestion. That a company
Yeah.
like yours
Yes.
does join definitely, because you are at one of the core of the topic which we discuss. And energy management, in particular, is very important to expand all at household level as well as CPO level, and where we expect in the future basically car charging sessions not only to be orchestrated through simple charging needs, but also in view of dynamic prices or constrained congestion happening into the system. So that basically we take advantage of the best renewable energy when it's available into the system without too much over congesting it. So this is really an important environment to work with, I think.
Interesting, yeah, for sure. It sounds like yes, more CPOs should consider joining. So maybe since we have somebody like you with such an experience, long experience on the grid level and such a broad view, yeah, maybe I thought it would be the occasion to draw a little picture of the evolution of the grid. So, what's the situation now in the grid? I mean, how has it evolved the last 10 or 15, 10 years? What challenges are we facing? And how can it sustain the EV growth, or can EV part of the solution? So tell me a bit of the big perspective on the grid.
Yeah, so we need to look at it through a broad decarbonization perspective. Really, the European Commission has set our European continent to be the benchmark when it comes to decarbonizing the end-to-end system. So that has impact onto several segments, hydrogen for certain applications, wind, offshore winds for others, which is one way of introducing massive renewable into the power system. Distributed photovoltaics, and basically being able to take advantage of solar energy when it's available. And of course, when it comes to transport, it's about decarbonizing the transportation, so enabling as much electrical vehicle and at the cheapest cost per kilometer as possible to the driver. So if you are kind of combining all these constraints, what you look is actually the grid is not enough. Grid operators, high voltage and medium low voltage, are all screaming for basically more investments, which I think regulators are prone to do. That is one element of grid expansion, but the other element is to have the necessary permitting, do the work, and that's where the complexity lies, because introducing PV and a car into home is a matter of days, a matter of a consumer deciding it, and we see it more as a kind of an exponential growth. In a way, introducing a power line does not grow exponentially. So you really see a situation where the grid becomes a significant bottleneck to all expansions. So not only, I would say, renewable or EV. So its flexibility is the only way moving forward so that we maximize usage of the pan-European system. So that means two things. Mm-hmm. One is using renewable, especially when it's cheap, when it's in surplus. What we see nowadays is dynamic prices are now becoming negative almost every day when we have sun in our power system, which is good for consumer if we expose them to these dynamic prices. I'm sure, Christophe, you'll understand that from your background. And on the other side, it's also about congestions. So congestion is making sure the wires can flow, and here it's a matter of expanding wires or adding storage or doing energy management so that we use wires during periods where they are not over congested. So that means probably during certain periods of the day or nights. So all that makes the end-to-end system having to interact with each other, and the complexity of energy management.
Do you see? So how do you see the situation? That's a broad view. If we took the lens, like, is the situation the same across all the regions and countries, or how is it different?
So it's a good question. It's quite different from country to others, because historically some countries have been developed out of different energy mix. So if you take Holland, it has historically been developed out of gas for heating and electricity for other applications. So the power system has been designed on the assumption that heating is not based on electricity, while we now introduce it in the same time, heat pump, electrical vehicles, and so on. So the wires are definitely undersized, and you see nowadays significant congestion across Holland's very strange statement from DSOs that we cannot charge during certain periods of the day, so which is absolutely unacceptable from a consumer point of view. And on the other side, if you are talking France as an example, we've been historically a nuclear-based systems, as what everyone know, with a lot of renewable now into the system, but with a large share of electrical heating. So that means the power system has been designed for sustaining larger peak. And basically the challenge of introducing EV, at least on short term, is less. What is very interesting is the trajectory which we see in the countries like Holland are going to end up everywhere in Europe, in my view, simply because the expanding lines is a very complex process. When I was at ENTSO-E, I remember we were hoping for 5 years on average for high voltage lines. It was actually taking 10 to 15 years, sometimes 25 years. And so that means that you cannot wait for permitting, CPO connection for 5 years when you desperately need more fast charging station in some areas, or even I would say at lower voltage level, if you start having neighborhoods with a lot of EV charging, wishing to move towards higher power, then you immediately create constraints. So I think we will have to, all of us, become grid focused, and we will have to think about the optimization of our energy management first in view of renewable and grid constraint perspective. That's really the trajectory which is going to come in the next 3-5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more grid focus. Yeah. Definitely, it's we cannot assume it's just there and then follows and that's what we need. Absolutely, very interesting. So, and just to keep a little European tour, because you have such a broad knowledge, I'd love to hear a bit. So, what's your evaluation of the grid in the UK, for example? What are they? How is it looking?
UK also significantly congested, lots of gas heating, a bit like Holland, and a lot, very massive offshore wind development, so creating high voltage congestions. And I think UK has a similar situation where you cannot afford very significant housing developments anymore, unless you queue, I would say, for several months, even sometimes years, into calling for grid connection. And simply because these housing development now call for, of course, EV charging, and basically heat pump and trying to get rid of gas. So this is a typical congested environment, and where you also see a high amount of renewable. And so there, I did not mention it too much. There is also the issue of surplus of renewable during certain times. And so it is important to also phase the loads of EV charging in periods where grids is in surplus, because otherwise it's curtailed energy, it's lost energy for the system. And I'm always sad to read some journalists about telling about fast charging, and we need to go fast. It's not the cost of fast charging. And I think we need, when we are an EV driver, I'm a driver for, as you know, 5-6 years. I'm an early adopter into that space. We need to realize that fast charging is going to be expensive during peak time, because we want to avoid these periods to overconstrain the system. Yep. In the same time, during the off-peak or high renewable period, it's going to become virtually free to drive, or even negative to drive. And we need to get people aware of that, because your electrical vehicle is at idle for long periods, especially into offices and homes. And it's very easy for it to capture renewable and electrons when they're cheap, when they're CO2 free, or when the grid is available. So it's just a matter of receiving the signal and getting the right optimization done.
Yeah. So it's about passing on the signal and attracting the drivers to come, as we start to see it in the Nordics, right? I think that different operators which are starting to implement, there's this small CPO in Denmark called Zap Mobility. I think they're building on a stack where they're using some software which really, allows them to leverage the negative prices, and just dynamically they're showing the prices on the signs on the road, and then you can really come and say, okay, now it's super cheap, so I'll charge extra now, and instead of just waiting for the next day. Again, same pattern as with gasoline, where sometimes the price drops, people are rushing to the stations, right? So it has to wait, but that's not happening yet. Be outside of Nordics, right? Maybe in the UK a bit, but not in France.
I would say it's starting. What I say with my cars, I've driven probably over 200,000 kilometers now across Europe. And I see really the cost of charging being more of an issue. And I see tendency of doing time variable prices, including, for instance, Tesla at its superchargers. So I think it's coming. And that's really the new gameplay for CPOs or energy management companies. How do you create awareness about the fact that when you charge at home, you probably charge around, if you are very smart in your energy management, so in less than 10 cents. When you charge fast charging on peak time, you charge at 70 cents. So times 7, it is very significant. And you're right, journalists keep focusing that 70 cents is more expensive than fossil or ICE vehicle, which is true, I would not oppose. But you can easily 95% charge your car at 15 cents. That's what I'm doing. And at 15 cents, it is basically 7 times less. It is CO2 free, and it is beneficial for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, but it's the vision, I think, which are presented by some companies in the industry of saying it's free charging. So zero cost charging at home especially.
Exactly.
Let's dive into one of our darling topics, especially since you are such a specialist. So When I mentioned VPPs when we prepared the episode, you said, well, VPPs started a long time ago. So why don't you start by taking us a bit through, again, memory lane of how your journey into VPPs started?
Yeah, so it's always fun to do that. Is I see how veteran I become into the energy space, and I keep meeting startups and inventing VPP as a future model. And no, I'm sorry, VPP were existing probably 15 years ago. I've been exposed to that during the first phase of development of actually winds into grids. And it was actually a concept used just to aggregate wind turbine together in order to bring more observability, visibility, monitoring to grid operator so that they can integrate these new flows, which are intermittent, into their grid operation.
So how was the money flow back then again?
The rule was such that if you are of a certain size, you have the obligations to provide this data through a VPP environment. I think the Spanish were the first one to do that, simply because the grid stability was potentially at stake because of the amount of renewable. Then the next phase has been to turn this VPP from monitoring into control and optimization. So then there started to be incentive for renewable to interact with energy market, dynamic, fast, I would say, real-time markets, especially through new escaping feeding tariff into feeding premiums, where basically the renewable developer has incentive for maximizing his revenue into dynamic markets, in which case you started to see linking renewable together with storage, easy, and then I would say large-scale industrial assets demand response. And that's how we've seen a large aggregator in Europe starting these developments. And we've seen, I would say, some acceleration in the past years, moving down from industrial assets to buildings and lower scale assets. What is really new now is the electrical vehicle. And the question is, first, it is as flexible as a storage asset. So it is definitely, I would say, a jewel into this VPP play. But what is very complex in the case of electrical vehicle is the value chain and the fact that you've got the vehicle together with a charger, together with the charging point operator, connecting with an EMS layer on the top of it and a virtual power plant, which is kind of aggregating these assets into real-time markets. So if you look at the core function of a VPP has been existing for years, and they are very good optimizers in that space. What is new is the aggregation of these distributed assets and the energy management at the edge. So energy management at the edge means combining a charger with a local storage unit or several chargers together, linking it with the grid constraint, grid connection, flexible connection agreements, and you can imagine few concepts there. That starts to exist in the CPO world. If you now want to build a fast charger, you need to think on the capacity of your grids available and potentially add some storage there. And what we bring, and I'm going to speak a few words about DCbel now, is we think the same trend will happen into the home side, where the charger will have to also to interact with local PV available, photovoltaic self-consumption, as well as with new charging discharging feature, because we do see a new platform of the majority of OEMs, car OEMs, becoming bi-directional by end of 2025. So that means you'll end up in homes having to manage your home energy, integrating your PV self-consumption together with your car battery and potentially another local battery, as what if the economics are there, and connect this back into a virtual power plant. So that's really what we are kind of offering in DCbel, is the hardware piece, the home energy station, and exposing the associated data in a VPP ready format for VPP to trade the assets into real-time markets. So if, in a nutshell, this is, I would say, a phasing of development, and now VPP is really at the phase where it has to integrate CPOs and it has to integrate home energy management in the future.
It has to, absolutely, yeah, to realize the potential. So again, maybe back to the same question, which is, of course, I guess correlated with a grid. So do you see the potential of VPPs equal across all regions? Or again, do you see major differences or different approach of VPPs by region on European level?
So the more grid and renewable constraint, the more potential first.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think you can relate this easily either to grid flows or to renewable surplus. And the particularity of what we see in recent VPP is that it moves revenue stream down to intraday trading, very, very close to algorithmic trading. And we see more and more volatility into transaction happening, very, very close to the dispatch of the resource. The resource being the storage unit. So basically, that means that the data flow which you need to cover needs to be event-based, real-time, extremely sharp, so that algorithmic trader, can close their position potentially down to the second. So that drives a level of accuracy in terms of data auditing and so on, which is significant. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, talking to company like ours, doing energy management at different scale, that means being able to control extremely sharply the assets, energy manage the assets at the local level, and offering basically real-time APIs to the higher level VPPs.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So, okay, so that gives a picture of the European landscape, understand. So yeah, maybe we can dig a bit too. So how does DCbel work? So what's the ecosystem, in collaboration to deliver this service, this vision to the homeowners, right? So what kind of companies you work together with?
Yeah, so we started to focus. We want to be consumer facing. So we sell our hardware to consumer. We aim for being the iPhone of energy in the future. So what does that mean? That means making energy integration easy in homes. And that means a single interface to the consumer. And this interfacing, integrating all what is producing or consuming in DC, in direct current on the DC. So that means integrating PV storage and car charging on the DC in homes. So that means at least a 15% efficiency improvement as compared to the current architecture, but also using this home energy station as a data interface for the consumer to interact with the grid and being able to manage its energy in homes and manage transaction with the higher level VPPs. So we are building right now an ecosystem, which is basically on one side connecting with other home devices, particularly heat pump, and on the other side being able to enable virtual power plant services, so talking to various utilities, flexibility service providers. Aggregator wanted to move to the next phase of VPP, so not the VPP as it is today, where it's still based on theoretical baseline calculation, into something which actually control and dispatch real-time the electricity as what we've seen in other sectors.
I understand, yeah. So what's happening in the next 12 months in terms of exciting development? Yeah, what are the key milestones for DCbel?
So we've been working very hard into finalizing the hardware piece. So the hardware piece is now finalized. We start the rollout. We have started the rollout in June in California. Very, very strong focus on California because we receive, I would say, a massive project from the California Energy Commission for rolling out the first 10,000 units. And in the meantime, we are also starting development in Europe, focusing particularly onto the markets offering the highest VPP revenues, coming back to which we think are currently UK, France, and Germany because of the size of the market, as well as Nordic countries because of the maturity of these markets, particularly towards dynamic pricing and towards usage of electrical vehicles. So Again, very happy to discuss with any interested CPO partner, a company like yours, Christophe, on how can we bundle our value proposition. What I can see clearly is when you are an EV driver in the future, you'll need to optimize in homes, but also in view of what you can access in terms of charging points outside your home. And there is potentially a play into bundling offering from homes into CPOs and others. So very happy to get in touch with any interested partner in that space.
Yeah, well, the word is out, absolutely. We'll share a link, of course, to your profile in the show notes, and we can always make an introduction. Yeah, again, we love to have innovative companies here, so we're happy to have you here, and especially with the wealth of knowledge that you bring. Yeah, great. I think we went around the different topics. I thank you very much for coming in today and sharing your views and your knowledge on the grid and on VPPs, and exciting to hear about DCbel, and we'll definitely keep in touch and looking forward to talking with you again sometime.
Yeah, thank you, Christophe, for the invite, and very happy to come back in the next few months to kind of update you on where we are.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Bye, Laurent.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bonne journée. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. A big thank you to Laurent Schmitt for sharing his expert insights into the future of energy and EV charging infrastructure. We explored how Europe's grids are under pressure from the rapid growth of EVs and renewables, with some markets like the Netherlands feeling the impact early and hard. Flexibility and smart energy management are key to tackling these challenges. Laurent highlighted how virtual power plants are evolving, with bi-directional EV charging set to play a vital role in optimizing grid capacity. We also touched on how dynamic pricing and real-time data will transform the way we charge, making energy use more efficient and affordable. As this industry rapidly evolves, collaboration between CPOs, grid operators, and innovative platforms like Flexecharge will be crucial to driving sustainable growth. Laurent also shared how advanced home energy management solutions like DCbels are taking us into a future where EV can not only power your home, but even support the grid. Truly fascinating stuff. If you have any suggestions for future guests from the EV charging or energy sectors, feel free to drop us an email at hello@flexicharge.com. Until our next episode, take care and drive safely.